into the second hour of the presentation. Nate Tice is an Edina native, now chilling in the suburbs of Las Vegas. And he writes for Yahoo and does work with NFL Network and also has a podcast. I've listened to a few this week, a very good podcast called Football 301, and he joins us now. Hey, my man, Nate, what's going on, buddy? Great seeing you at the Combine, and thanks for joining the show.
Yeah, great seeing you too. I think the last time I saw you in person was probably at Canterbury. So it was good to see you in a non-horse racing setting. No, it was great seeing you, PA. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
No problem, man. And you promised me you weren't going to tell anybody that I asked you to borrow $50 for a pick 5 that day at Canterbury.
I always love that one.
I appreciate you on that.
I think the Tices are only good in California. San Diego and Del Mar. That's the only place you can get pick 5s and pick 6s done. Now we're doing the Midwest.
Nate and a co-host with their most recent Football 301, they went through 10 free agents or scenarios that are really intriguing to them. Very, very good, man. I think it dropped like yesterday. I finished listening to it this morning. And when it comes to free agency, Nate, like you were at the Indianapolis Scouting Combine. That's where Bursich and I saw you, and we've both known you forever. The Combine, the later the season goes and the later the Super Bowl is, don't you just feel that the Combine is 90% about free agency now and like 10% about the kids coming into the draft?
Well, yeah, especially with so many players, prospects not working out. So for us in the media space too, it's, we only get so many interviews with an actual player. So it's just the coaches kind of coming around, for GMs kind of come around, the ones that do, because some of them are not even coming to the Combine anymore either. That it almost feels like the free agency rumor mill. And as opposed to other sports, maybe like basketball, which goes draft then free agency, the NFL is the opposite. It goes free agency and then the draft. So it's kind of, okay, the Combine, all right, cool, we got some prospect talk, but, this guy's not running the 40, who cares? All right, what are you guys doing at tight end? I think that's just the draw of the conversation, too. And like you said with the Super Bowl, the turnaround, it's almost like a back-to-back, let's continue that conversation in a couple of weeks. Okay, we talked about this at the Super Bowl. There's a lot of media members there. I saw Kevin O'Connell there. So there's, team members there as well. So you get that back-to-back continuing the conversation. I think it's just the timeline of things. And now that the Combine's maybe taking a step down with so many guys not working out, that's kind of changed the conversations where the flow of the conversations go. So, yeah, I feel like free agency becomes draws more attention. And maybe that's some of the quarterback carousel that we have nowadays. And
Nate, whether it's, me chatting with coaches, before they come on the radio or on the side, I just increasingly am gaining two common threads with the decade and a half of combines I've attended. One, a decent amount of coaches don't go. Like Matt LaFleur hasn't gone 4 consecutive years. And my belief is he feels he gets more work done by not going, and then do the in-room interviews via Zoom or whatever. Secondly, is I'm just hearing from a lot of coaches that, and this is good too. This is, kind of good times, bad times. One, the good part is season ends and they're giving their staffs, a fair amount of time off to decompress, and likewise for themselves. And then when they come back, they're mashing on the self-scouting, which could be a week and change, and then free agency. So it's like they're just not super far down the road on rookies by the time the Combine hits, and that makes it a little tricky, right?
And also the scouts and everything, it all depends on the team, too, where some teams are very siloed between the personnel and the coaches. They might not have a list of guys to watch yet where, after the Combine, the scouts and the execs might just go, the personnel members might go, okay, these are actually the 8 guys we want you to watch.
Right.
As opposed to maybe before that Combine. No, this is a great point. Before the Combine, we had you watch 12 guys. Well, actually 4 of those guys are off our list now. So we just wasted your time. And you had to watch those 4 guys that we would never touch because of medicals or because of character or something, some way, shape, or form that we took them off our board or lower on our board. So, no, it's just the timing of that. And the time off stuff is very real. I think also it depends on what tree these guys are coming. You just brought up LaFleur, McVay, Kyle Shanahan. Those guys seem to be going less and less, as opposed to it used to be a lot of these guys were from the coaching tree of the Belichick tree or the Andy Reid tree. And it's like those guys are grinders. And I'm not saying these guys aren't grinders. I'm saying that they can make the excuse or may come up with a story that they should take time off. It was a race to get in there earlier and earlier, as opposed to maybe these guys being younger coaches too, being around the game maybe a little earlier, understanding that the flow is just a little bit different with the off season. So no, it's a great point. Like even I my whole career is based off watching film. I go to the combine. I can't do any of that. I always say every year, I'm going to watch this guy when I'm in the Indy. I have no time to do that. So I can only imagine guys with teams that have even more of a stretched out, schedule and stuff. So I think it is a better use of time where guys, because now the combine is just interviews and medicals, which is how the combine started, which is the ironic thing that we've come full circle on that. Now the workouts matter less. So why do I need to see this? I got video of it anyways. If I'm a coach, I could just sit in my office and spend 9 hours watching film, doing the self-scouting stuff, watching free agents that maybe mid level free agents, or watching more college guys and doing it. Film is the resume. The character stuff and the medical stuff is the extra stuff for the prospect profile. But watching film is paramount to everything. It is the end all be all. So let's have more time doing that. So I always understand the arguments for it. And as you know how my dad was, he was the exact same way. Work hard, play hard, but take the time off when you can get it. But when we're in here, we'll just grind on the film. So I think more coaches are going that way.
Amen. Now, this podcast, Football 301, it's coming up on a 1-year anniversary. And, you can learn more about it via Nate's Twitter feed, at Nate_Tice, at Nate_Tice. Other than that, like what led to you wanting to do this, and where can people find it?
Oh man, it was. I always knew I wanted to be in sports, as you probably knew. I've known you since I was a teenager. It was, I got lucky enough. I played and then coached, and I knew even playing, being around Dante Culpepper and Gus Frerotte and Brad Johnson and Sean Hill. I was like, I don't have that kind of arm, and so I kind of knew what my limitation was as a player. And I think once I got to at college, I was under Paul Christ, my offensive coordinator at Wisconsin. I really learned a lot there. And I was like, oh, yeah, I want to be a coach or scout. Somewhere I'm with a team. And when those kind of flamed out and I kind of was like, I'm tired of moving. I moved around a lot as a kid, as a teenager, and then into college and afterwards. I kind of settled in Vegas with my now wife, and I thought I was going to just be outside of football. I got lucky where I started the podcast on The Athletic with Robert Mays, and that just led to this, where I can remember coming on here right when that kind of started. I started tweeting more because I wasn't with the team. My dad wasn't with the team, wasn't worried about getting in trouble anymore. So I started tweeting more, and that just kind of started getting paid more, that I could turn it into a career. I thought I was going to be selling insurance like a lot of us former quarterbacks do and former coaches do. The fact that the media stuff, it just kind of took off, and, I take it seriously. I do watch a lot of film and try to use some of my scouting and coaching background to kind of use it. And it's just a lot of useless knowledge that I learned from osmosis from a lot of smarter people that I was around, that I get to kind of regurgitate. And some people find it interesting, and that's led to this. And so I know I love it, and I'm glad I get to do it a bunch because my commute's about 10 feet nowadays. And it's much better than driving it at 5 a.m. after 3 straight losses in the cold, going to Winter Park. I kind of like this kind of career path a little bit better.
The podcast is Football 301. You can find it all over the place, at Nate_Tice, the Twitter spot. That's a good place to start. Now Nate also writes for Yahoo Sports, and Yahoo.com. And you recently wrote, Miami quarterback Cam Ward is much more than the top quarterback in a weak quarterback draft. What does that mean, and what led you to that?
He's been kind of getting the backhanded compliment that I think this draft class doesn't have a lot of the high-end blue-chip talent that maybe we saw last year, or maybe we saw in that class, the Jamar Chase class, the Trevor Lawrence class with a lot of the other players. So I think some people think that this class is just down and overall bad, where I think it's more that there's a lot of good players, kind of that late first round, second round types, as opposed to maybe the easy, this guy's a bona fide top 5 pick. And I think with the quarterback class, it's, with COVID and with and with the money that these guys can get in college, not as many guys declare early, and they can just transfer and maybe boost their stock. And I think what's happened is Cam Ward's been like, a lot of people are kind of shrugging and going, yeah, I guess he's the best guy of this group. It's not a good group. But after watching him, I kind of maybe was guilty of that a little bit as well. After watching him, studying him, and this is why it's so much fun to study the film and just kind of see the combine numbers, see his height, his weight, all those types of things to kind of confirm it, is that he really grew on me. Where it's like, no, this guy's a good quarterback prospect at any type of draft class. Like, he is valid to go in the top 15 in any type of draft class. I even ended the article saying that, I wouldn't have him as high. He's not a true blue chip elite quarterback prospect like I had Caleb Williams and Drake May last year, and then Jaden Daniels maybe a notch below that. I would say that he was just below Jaden Daniels. He was more equivalent to maybe where I had J.J. McCarthy graded, which is, still a first-round grade, but more of the end of the first round. Quarterbacks get inflated. But that is a first-round quarterback. That's a top 15 quarterback. This is a quarterback that can be a needle mover and a guy that you win because of. I think his creativity is outstanding. I think that he has a very loosey-goosey throwing style and playing style because he wasn't groomed from 9 years old to be a quarterback. He just kind of came to it. He played in a wing tee offense in high school, barely recruited, has bounced around some air raid offenses, has performed in all these offenses. And so he kind of made a style of his own. And I think that, there's a skateboarder named Rodney Mullen. I meant to bring him up in the article, but that's kind of what he is. He has a lot of technical ability that's kind of been underrated. He just gets to it in a funkier way that looks unorthodox. But I really liked him. I think he's a smart football player. I think he has some creation ability. He has a good arm, but not an outstanding arm. I think that's his one blemish. But there's a lot of Steve McNair to his game. That is kind of the comparison I'm coming to with him. And maybe not to the notch. McNair had a better arm and maybe was a better athlete, but same kind of build, same kind of playing style. So I think that's where I kind of concluded that he's not just the best of a bad bunch. He's legitimately a good quarterback prospect that a team would be lucky to draft him at the top of the class. That's why I think the Titans do take him, though, too, at the number one pick.
What do you think of Shedeur Sanders?
I think people are catching up to what he actually is on the field. I think a lot of discussions right now are happening with the interviews and stuff. And there's a famous scouting line that if Hannibal Lecter ran a 4.3, the scouts and coaches would just say he had an eating disorder. It's all about what you can do on the field. And I think that's really what's happening where he's quote unquote sliding down draft boards. I think it's more, this is actually what teams have considered him and what I consider him. I view him more as a second rounder. I think he's not as big as people realize. He's a little undersized. He's not that fast either. He's not a very good athlete. He's an adequate athlete, an average athlete. I think he has a good arm, though. He can push the ball. He's aggressive. He's really tough in the pocket. Actually, him and Ward is tough in the pocket as well. But he's tough in the pocket. He's competitive. He just doesn't have any overwhelming traits. And I think that's where you would think Deion Sanders' son would have some high-end traits. But he's more just an average athlete. He has average size. He has a good arm. Takes a lot of sacks, and I know the Colorado offensive line wasn't great, but I think they're actually kind of getting, knocked unfairly a little bit. He kind of has a playing style that takes on some sacks. He'll drift in the pocket, still needs to work on that. He'll lob up some footballs that he shouldn't because he trusted his receivers. He'll take some easier throws underneath when he could be pushing the ball. So I think overall he's more of a second-round type. And I think more of the league views him that way as well. And I think that people are kind of catching up to that.
Nate Tice, Yahoo Sports, NFL Network, the podcast Football 301, Edina native, played quarterback for the Wisconsin Badgers. Nate_Tice via Twitter to learn more. Hey, just as an aside, Las Vegas, is there a buzz in Vegas with Tom Brady as one of the owners? I mean, is that team hot in the 702?
Yeah, not as hot as the Golden Knights. I would say that they have a little bit more heat around them, to use a wrestling term, a heat around them because of not only just Tom Brady coming in, but kind of the venture capitalists that invested in the team. The Raiders sold more of their team to VC firms than any other team because they needed more cash flow. So I would even say now it's not even just Tom Brady, but it's Pete Carroll. Oh, that's legitimacy. Yep. And then also just splurging $6 million a year on Chip Kelly. So I think maybe there is a little bit more like, oh, okay, you guys are finally serious. But, as long as they win games, there's heat, as any fan base is. And it's the Raiders. They have a national fan base. But there's a little bit more now because I think the locals are going like, oh, you guys are actually acting serious now and acting like a real franchise. So trading for Geno Smith as well. So I think all those moves that they made in the last 3, 4, 5 months have really kind of, okay, teams are local fan bases and kind of treating them as an afterthought, which is ironic for an NFL team.
Okay, with the most recent Football 301 podcast, and is it Charles McDonald? Was that the co-host?
Yes.
Yeah. So they went through 10 of their favorite like free agent hits or scenarios, stuff like that. It's about an hour. It's really cool. And as the Vikings go, it's 20, 25 minutes into it. I know you're a fan of beefing up the beef. You have Ryan Kelly and Will Fries on the offensive line. You have Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave on the defensive line. For those who missed it, what are you liking about this?
Yeah, I was really impressed. I'll start with the defensive side. This is what I thought the Vikings needed badly. The term I keep coming back to is tangible beef. Is that the defensive line last year with Brian Flores, he gets the most out of these guys. He gets a lot of guys that maybe aren't perfect fits elsewhere, but they work for him being Flores, and it can be that funky defense. A lot of not only just blitzes, but fake blitzes, creeper pressures, as they call them, or simulated. A lot of slanting of the defensive line, a lot of defensive line movement, and he got the most out of what they had. And now they got guys that are actual needle-moving talents. Yes, they're a little older, have some injury stuff, but I do think this is kind of the Vikings' kind of little money ball. Maybe take a little discount with some guys that have some injury history, and we get them in our performance team and ramp them up.
Right.
And I really like that. Hargrave was a very disruptive player for the Eagles. The 49ers signed him. Wasn't a perfect fit there. They needed a guy that was a little bit more of a beefy guy that holds up, takes on blocks. He is more of a gap shooter. He's a disruptive player that gets upfield a lot over and over and over again. Now he goes onto a defense where he's going to be able to slant and create edginess. And so it's a much better fit for his skill set. And then same with Jonathan Allen. Jonathan Allen's very rugged. He's not a true nose tackle, which is what I kind of am curious with if the Vikings add that, a guy that's a true 330-pound, big, ugly, Pat Williams type in the middle. But now, Jonathan Allen could be a big, strong guy. He's also disruptive as well and brings some strength in the middle too. So I just really like that because these guys are actually very talented. And yes, they're probably more on the downside of their career, but still you're getting a good player at what I think was fairly fair contracts, but guys that they kind of needed. But I really like the offensive additions. Offensive line, I'm always going to keep an eye on it. And I thought, and really last year, keeping my eye on the Vikings and really becoming so bullish on them. And I really liked how Sam Darnold played last year. I've always been, more bullish on him than others. Was I kind of noticed that a lot of people were bringing up what Kevin O'Connell did, what Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and what the receiving game does, but not bringing up how the offensive line played after Christian Darrisaw got hurt, and which wasn't good. And that's what I think has been kind of lost in the mess or lost in the discussion was that this Vikings offensive line, the second half of last year, was one of the worst in the NFL. The Vikings are a very aggressive offense, and that does create more pressure. But I still think it wasn't anything absurd. It wasn't anything that we haven't seen before. And when Cam Robinson had to play on this offensive line at left tackle, he allowed the highest pressure rate among any offensive tackle in the NFL from week 9 onwards. Blake Brandel allowed the third highest pressure rate among all guards. Garrett Bradbury allowed the highest pressure rate among all centers. Ed Ingram allowed the highest pressure rate among all guards. Dalton Risner was a little slightly above average. He was about average tier. These are all stats from Next Gen Stats. So they had to add, again, tangible beef. And Ryan Kelly has that injury history. He's more of a solid player. It's a huge improvement over Bradbury. And I also think with Fries is a good player. Had a weird injury last year, so it's not something you should be too concerned about. But he's just a gigantic improvement over what they had, which I would say is not even just below average, it was borderline bad. And so that improvement, I think, no matter who's the quarterback there, most likely J.J. McCarthy, of course, is that's going to just help shore up that system that I think wasn't as strong as I think people have made it out to be. I actually would say it's actually a very weak aspect that we saw in the playoffs, and we saw in Week 18 that it came to a head there. So I think they had to address this, and I really liked how they went about it because they got actual needle-moving type talents to help him out.
What Nate Tice, a couple more here. You mentioned, last year when you were looking at the quarterbacks, you had J.J. McCarthy as a first-round pick. Quarterbacks get inflated, so he they trade up for him, they get him at 10. And I agree with all that. But if you were to think back to, like, what did you like about J.J. into the draft last year from Michigan, and what are some tangible things that you feel, once he pushes through being new with this staff and with O'Connell and this high-end offensive staff, what are some things that you think he'll do well in the NFL?
Well, he's a loose athlete, and that is kind of what stands out. It was always, you could just see the glimpses of it. As a runner, he has the flexibility to, and being a loose athlete can work like this as well, where they can change arm slots, which I think is paramount to being a good quarterback these days. Like, you just don't always throw traditionally like frickin' Roger Clemens. You're going to have to sometimes look like Randy Johnson. You're sometimes going to have to look like a submariner when you throw these balls around defenders. So I did like that he had some throwing creativity, which helps him out, and he's a good athlete with a good arm. So he has all the traits as far as, speed, athleticism, arm. I like that he had, cojones. He's willing to throw over the middle. He's willing to push the ball over the middle and get, I'm big on quarterbacks throwing over the middle of the field because it's hard. And if you do that, though, that's the juiciest area to attack. That is where the yards after catch come. I mean, that's one aspect of Sam Darnold that was a lot of fun, was him ripping those dig routes and doing it without a second thought if a mistake happened. McCarthy has that ability as well, that he's able to push the ball over the middle, fire it over the middle. Again, you didn't see it a ton because of Michigan's offenses, so you really had to extrapolate the glimpses that you saw from it. So he's good operating under center. He can operate out of the gun. He's got a quick enough throwing motion where you can throw some of the underneath passes as well, do some quarterback run game stuff. I was always concerned maybe about his build and his weight. And that's also probably, even after injuries and stuff. So that he bulked up for the combine last year, but that's something that even with Jaden Daniels, I bumped him down a little bit because I have long-term concerns about weight. Teddy Bridgewater should, those builds get me a little scared. But I think that is why coaches really liked him too, is because he had game that translates to the NFL. I think throwing over the middle is like a basketball player that shoots threes. You can get to it, but you prefer the guy already was a good shooter that could show it already. So all the throws are available to him. I thought one random weakness he had was throwing to the left. When he pushed the ball and had to throw to the left, his efficiency kind of dropped off. But again, that's something that can be fixed with time. And again, because he's a good athlete. So it was just, he had a high baseline of traits that I really liked. And like I said, I ideally, he's a guy that I would have taken in the 20s. But again, that's not how quarterbacks work. Ideally you take him at 26, but guess what? Quarterbacks are going to get, I always say a half round inflation. I'll take him at 25. Guess what? He's going to pick 10. That's just how it kind of goes with these. But those are the traits that I think get coaches excited: intelligence, football IQ, with having an arm and being a good athlete.
Hey, lastly here, Nate, outside of the Vikings, and in listening to the podcast, there's, I'm not going to say Roy Lopez is like my favorite underrated player in the game. But every time the Vikings play Arizona, I come into the game like, who's Roy Lopez? And then I do work on it and then watch the game and the hair and the quick twitch for a nose tackle. And it was good on that podcast to hear you talk about this sneaky move by the Lions. I mean, they get, with DJ Reader and Awonzaruk, Levi's coming back and Aiden Hutchinson, obviously. Nose tackle Roy Lopez from the Cardinals. You liked this move for the NFC North champs, don't you?
I did. He was, nose tackles are kind of like closers in baseball. They're fungible. You can get guys on the cheap and kind of get through it, but sometimes it's nice to, maybe buy low and get something really out of there. Get something really out of it. Roy Lopez is just a unique guy. Yeah, I really like this player. He's a nose tackle that can eat blocks, which is what I talked about with Jonathan Allen, those guys too. But that's what their first goal is. But he has more twitch and disruption to him that, like, you can, he's only going to get like a sack or two a year. but maybe get some tackles for loss, maybe get some other disruption on the interior. I was curious if he would have a little market. Didn't seem like he had a huge one, because I think you can kind of find a nose tackle. You can find them in the middle rounds. You can kind of find them, but you need one. It's kind of that you can't unaddress it, but you don't have to invest heavily in it. I liked it for the Lions because DJ Reader's getting older. This guy can eat some snaps, 20, 30 snaps. He's going to play well against the run, do enough against the pass and everything. But, I mean, his best game last year was probably against the Packers, and he was disruptive the whole game. And I think he barely even he doesn't fill up the box score, but he does a lot of that in-between stuff that you need from that role. So the Lions went and signed him, and it made total sense to me, because now they just get another plugger with some of the other guys that they have up front. You know, they like bigger guys. So, yeah, Roy Lopez, I'm glad we get to talk about him, because he's kind of one of my sneaky, little mid-tier nose tackles that I thought has been underrated the last couple of years. He played on a bad Cardinals defense last year. The defense improved this year under Nick Rawls, a fellow Edina grad. But Roy Lopez, though, is that he was from the Texans. They cut him because I think of an injury settlement. Cardinals needed bodies. They signed him off the scrap heap, and he turned into a nice player. So yeah, it was one of the underrated signings that I liked of this free agency period. I was wondering where he would end up.
Nate, man, that was super smart and super thoughtful. Thank you very much for the answers. I mean, that I really, really enjoyed that. Would like to do it more frequently if you have time. And congratulations on the work with NFL Network, Yahoo Sports, and the podcast Football 301 at Nate_Tice to learn more about that. Have a wonderful weekend, okay?
You too. Thanks, PA. Happy to be on whenever.
Thank you, bud. See you. That's Nate Tice, no relation to Onwuzurike.
Oh, my God. That's terrible. Northwest Sports Show taking place this weekend. Kicked off yesterday. It's at the Minneapolis Convention Center. And whether it's RVs, it's fishing, it's outdoors, they got seminars, they got cool experiences for the kids. Northwest Sports Show is awesome. You can learn more at northwestsportshow.com. But from 4 to 6 p.m. today, I'm hosting a fish fry, and I can't wait to do that. So I'll be at the convention center from 4 to 6 p.m. today. Hang out, eat some fish. Maybe you got some big opinions on the football team. We can chat it all out and have a blast at the sports show. I'll be there from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Minneapolis Convention Center. Looking forward to it. With the fish and the fish fry, is there batter? Because the batter is so key. I mean, if it's like, and I can say this. I'm glad you mentioned that, by the way, but yes. My very first job, 82, I was a sophomore in high school. Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips. Okay. So, I mean, when it comes to battering fish in the dip, now the type of, whatever went into the batter for Art Treacher's, I don't even know if it's a thing anymore. It's kind of like, it used to be super popular, and it's like the seasoning or the secret that went into the batter for Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips, and then you would get Hush Puppies on the side. Hey. And I made them all until, I reconfigured a fryer the wrong way, and then I turned it on while looking over it, which was a fat L, and half my eyebrow, which were eyebrows, got singed, so therefore I had to shave them. You constantly looked perplexed. Well, now that was the origin of, we're going to call him Paul Alien, because his eyebrows don't look right. That was the origin. I'm not kidding you. Grand Avenue, Glendora, California. Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips. Fryer blows up in my face. But like Colonel Sanders and Kentucky Fried Chicken and whatever goes into whatever that recipe is. Yeah, the original, extra crispy's good. Extra crispy. Whatever goes into the skin on the original. Yeah. Whoa. Yeah, the salt pepper mixture, whatever it is, there's something else in there. We know there might be 50 things in there for all we know, but it's delicious. Yeah. No batter. But Arthur's Treacher's Fish and Chips, they were super secretive with what went into their batter. It was like kind of the bit. So I've become an elite in a roundabout way fish fry mind simply by being a sophomore in high school and recognizing, damn, okay, so you just don't mix together like two things for fish batter? Oh, you can. For fish fry batter? Oh, you can. And it's fine.
but there are ways to make it really, really good.
Yeah, I've never made the batter myself, but I can tell you this time of year, I don't eat a lot of fish over the course of the year, but this time of year, Friday night's fish fry night. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
So not all batters are created equal, man, from the flour to whatever, again, salt, pepper, whatever mixture they're putting in there. Mm-hmm. There are places I've been, the fish is absolutely awful because the batter has some sort of odd taste to it. So not all batters are created equal. I'm not a big add oil or vinegar to the bit. Some are. You see that maybe in like an English or an Irish restaurant or
Yes.
whatever. I'm not into that. Just give me some really good cod or walleye, and I'm pretty much set. As long as the batter's good. Is it fluffy? Is it too crunchy? I don't want to sound like I'm a fish and chips snob here, but it matters. The batter matters. So I will be reporting live from the Northwest Sports Show in terms of the quality of the batter.
Yeah.
And we're going to eat some fish tonight. It's going to be fun.
Now, beer can be part of it, thus beer batter fish.
Indeed.
Which you get all over the place in England. You know, we've been to London so many times of late that, I mean, I've had a ton of fish and chips over the last X amount of years. And
they're good at it over there. They've been doing it for a while.
Yes, it's good, but the batters are different.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you said that because some people like increase the salt. There was one place, it was in Watford, that had batter that actually compelled me to ask them, this tastes different. What's a key here? Can't say the word. Turmeric?
Yeah, turmeric?
Yeah, turmeric.
Okay.
Does everybody put turmeric in beer in fish batter? Turmeric.
That's a good question.
I never forgot it. It's like 5 years ago. Turmeric. Now I've never made it, but it was turmeric and also mind the gap. It so your fish batter doesn't become dodgy. It's the mixing is key.
Yeah.
Okay. You just can't be bored with the mix. No lumps left.
Correct.
Okay. Can't be any lumps left. If you got some lumps left, that's not how you get the ridges on the batter.
Oh,
you get the ridges by dragging the mug the right way through the oil.
Oh, brilliant.
At least that's what I remember from 82. You drag that thing slowly through there, then flip it over.
You're an artist.
And you're an artist. You're I'm Pablo Fishcasso. And that creates the ridge, but the turmeric, that's a jolly old England key to batter tasting a certain way.
Oh, and from a condiment standpoint, adding the curry sauce with the chips and or the fries. I love the curry sauce.
Yeah,
you don't see that a bunch of places.
It's phenomenal. All right, so 4 to 6, where are you going to be? What you doing again?
Minneapolis Convention Center, Northwest Sports Show. It is a fish fry as part of the overall. Again, the convention center's sweet. You're going to be looking at RVs and outdoor bits and fishing and all of that. So that's the A topic, but I'm also going to be there hanging out for a fish fry, chatting football and looking at cool stuff.
You got time for a 45-second story?
Yes.
Speaking of the convention center, Daryl Hall and John Oates. Okay, before Daryl couldn't hit the high notes. Let's say 2000, 99, 2000, 2001. They're playing at the Minneapolis Convention Center. A friend of mine, Greg Mazakian, was a mechanic for Northwest Airlines. And this was a Northwest Airlines private party. So I caught wind that Daryl Hall and John Oates are playing this private party. Called races, got done at 6.
And the getting was good at Northwest. Having Hall and Oates at your private party?
Threw on a suit, went down there, just, walked by somebody. Didn't get the, are you with whatever?
Yeah.
No. Walked right up to the front. Stood, I was 2 feet from Daryl Hall, looking up at him, and they're mailing it in because nobody's getting out of their seats and clapping. It's just, hey, we're going to take our 275 and just move on to the next thing. Now, they have a song from their Abandoned Luncheonette album that has She's Gone called Las Vegas Turnaround. We've played it.
Yes, we have.
Sarah's off on a turnaround, flying gambling fools to the Holy Land, Las Vegas. Well, it's one of my favorites, man. And this is an airline party, and they were mailing it in. You're a rich girl, gone too far. Thank you very much. Because your kiss, God, thank you very much. So I'm standing there, and then I'm like, it gets quiet, and I kind of whispered to Daryl Hall, this is an airline party. You have to play Las Vegas Turnaround. And he looks at me and he says, this is an airline party. We can do that. Turnaround, 2, 3. Ba-na-na-na-na. I changed the set list for immortality.
Wow.
How about that?
That's unbelievable.
And why'd that come up? Convention Center, where Norda will be today 4 to 6. After that, you can mosey on over to the Target Center and watch the Timberwolves play the Orlando Magic, try to win 7 in a row for Fincho. That's part of News du Nord, which is next.
Welcome back. News du Nord brought to you by The Casino at Canterbury Park, CanterburyPark.com. Poker, blackjack, and table games all year round. And, of course, live racing just a couple of months from now or so. So looking forward to that.
On Woozerike.
Levi's coming back. The Rangers.
That was good. I like that.
At the Minnesota Wild last night, we did Vox in the Box. Do we get credit for the point? Wild were chasing some of that game. It was a good first period. Trocheck made it 1-0 visitors in the second. But Marcus Johansson, how about some power play tallies? We dig that. Gustav Nyquist with an apple. And you end up going 2-2 into OT. It was Braden Schneider with the game winner for the New York Rangers. Both Shesterkin, who you had mentioned during the show, had been battling. Gus Bus doing his thing. Both goaltenders really damn good yesterday. Yeah. It was nice to see the Wild fight back in the final frame to get the second goal and to bring it to the OT. They needed that point. They got one.
Big time.
But the Rangers got the better in the end.
Yeah, so being like 9 ahead in the playoff push or whatever it was from St. Louis, Calgary, Vancouver. St. Louis tomorrow, big game. And with X amount to go, let's say 15, 16, 17, is the point yesterday was, because it's starting to get a little loud about the Wild making or not making the playoffs.
Yep.
I mean, again, it doesn't make me right. I'm not being Mark Messier here. They're a 90%er for the playoffs, even with what they have now. Why? Because of what happened last night.
Right.
Overtime points. You get those overtime, those OTLs, you get those overtime points and others don't. That's going to make them really tough to just bump out of the postseason.
What excites you about the Howl going 6 in a row for Fincho to 7 in a row tonight with the visiting Orlando Magic? Magic are scrappy. You've mentioned that a couple of times. They play kind of down and dirty, ugly-ish games where they kind of slow things down to fit their pace.
Mostly healthy right now, too, except for Jalen Suggs.
Yeah, Suggs is out. But other than that, you mentioned, health-wise, Wagner and Banchero are going to be a pain in the butt. They're 5 games under 500, yet they're a playoff team in the East. So that's kind of the weird differences between the West and the East. But what excites you about seeing the group at Target Center tonight and taking advantage of home court?
Because it's, again, when Finch said last week after the 141 against the Spurs, when I heard him say they've all bought in, I couldn't wait to get him on the radio Tuesday just to hear, because first time he said that. It's because I'm like, that's big. All buying in.
Yeah.
That means Clark's cool with his role. Shannon, man, he helped a lot, but now he's playing like 6 minutes. Cool with his role. Dillingham, cool with his role. Randall and Edwards. I like how either Johnny Krasinski or Finch put it the other day. It's no longer my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn. McDaniels is consistent. Now, Banchero, Franz Wagner, Wendell Carter Jr., Jonathan Isaac are the skeletal remains thereof. You said it perfectly. They want to turn it into a fight.
Yeah.
They want to turn it into a muck and grind neutral zone trap game. And we got Rudy. And Julius is bully ball guy. This is what he does. So I just love how they're playing, how the Alphas are playing right now and how they're being complemented by the ancillary pieces. And they should win tonight to make it 7 in a row.
Last thing for you, News du Nord style, as we enter the final hour. We mentioned, all the Rodgers conversation from the first hour with Chad and Lieber was elite, and it'll be podcastable soon. But the idea then ultimately is whatever that decision lands on, it's going to land on JJ, and it's JJ season. Well, we still need a veteran backup PA, and we're going to dig into that with some depth chart bits final hour. But it's like, okay, well, Flacco's visiting the Giants, and now we're looking at like Minshew got a contract somewhere else. He might be with the Chiefs. I have to look that up exactly. Okay, it is the Chiefs.
Yep.
It's like Jim Sorgi behind Peyton Manning back in the day. Being the backup to Patrick Mahomes has to be nice.
Jacoby Brissett went to Arizona. That's one that I was low-key interested in.
Okay, yeah.
Because Jacoby, he's shown you can play him 2, 3, 4 games and you're good.
Yeah.
He's big. He can move a little bit. He follows the plan. Now, Petzing is the OC down there, and he was with Jacoby in Cleveland.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it works. So
we got we're looking at the Trey Lances, Drew Locks, Joe Flacco's, Winston's, Wentz's, Keenum's, Sticks, Cooper.
Yeah.
Oh, Cooper Rush. Okay.
Yeah, there are going to be some cuts.
But there has so that would like to see from the team if this makes sense. Now that let's focus in on JJ.
Yeah.
Now I want to see what that looks like in terms of I don't know if it's urgency or whatnot. I want to hear something on that veteran QB front. Hopefully soon.
Well, and when it comes to a potential starter not named JJ McCarthy, who has no interest in backing up. 9 to noon, yours truly believes that there should be that thing should be coming to fruition here pretty soon. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We'll see. But outside of that guy, I have to believe that shoe is going to drop. I can't explain why. I mean, it's you just got to think like Mullins. Mullins could be considered a coveted backup. It's because he started 20 some odd games. I'm Camp Joe Flacco. I like him. He's smart. He has no agenda when it comes to if I come there. It's Super Bowl MVP, man. He might be HOF. So he's just smart in waiting, knowing I might get a chance.
Yeah.
If I don't get a chance.
He knows his current station.
It's another year in the pension. He saved the Browns season a couple of years ago. And people make fun of Flacco because he's not super nimble, never has been, but it's a little more creaky these days.
Sure.
2 years ago, if it had been Flacco and not Dobbs, we would have won 10 games minimum and would have made the playoffs.
Indeed.
But then you boxed me sweetly because okay, cool, that would have been great. We weren't winning the Super Bowl or going to it, and we wouldn't have had JJ.
Yeah.
It was a hell of a box right there.
Well,
so it worked out the way God planned for it to work out.
There you go.
And out of it, we got JJ McCarthy. So let's not push against that, if you know what I mean.
That is your hindsight leader, Eric Nordquist, 9 to noon, and that's News to Nord, PA, brought to you by the Casino at Canterbury Park.
Coming up next, Nordo and I are going to take a look at the Vikings special teams, offense and defense, post bulk of the draft, bulk of free agency being satisfied, and the draft a month and change away. And we're going to go through position groups and share who we think will start and why. Into the final hour of today's 9 to noon on KFAN.